Hello and welcome to Cask, Theology, a channel about theology and beer. Welcome to my What Is series, my series where I take a beer or a bit of theology and then explain it. In the last episode, I gave a brief introduction into beer, and what with the channel named after it and all, I thought I would delve into the other side of the coin and ask the question, what is theology? Well, the short answer is that it's the study of the divine, and that it's complicated. But I'm guessing you didn't come for the short version. Well, you did, but not that short. So, if you have your drink, let's ask the question, what is theology? Like a lot of commonly used words in English, the word theology has its roots in ancient Greek. Any theologians worth their salt will tell you that the word itself stems from two words squished together. The first is theos, which means God, and the ology bit comes from the word logia, meaning discussions or utterances. The root word of logia is logos, a word which you'll hear a lot on this channel, and depending on context implies the spoken word, thinking or study. So the meaning of the word translates to roughly discussions or study of God. So much like biology is the study of living things, and geology is the study of the earth, theology is the study of the divine. Now theology is often a word which is generally associated with Christianity, which of course is going to be a big part of this channel, but it's not an exclusive Christian thing. Everyone of all faiths, or none, can do some sort of theology. As with other ologies, it's about finding answers to questions, but with theology, the answers can get a bit, well, let's say, abstract. As evidenced by the many and varied faiths and religions out in the world, there have been more than a few answers. Is there a God? Is there one? Are there loads? Is there something else? Or is there none? Generally, theology starts with the argument that there is a God, and then asks how that affects us. Theology isn't to be confused with religious studies, as although it's in a similar field, and they do have a lot of overlap, it's not quite the same thing. Religious studies takes this role of an outside observer, whereas in theology you're on the inside and using the framework to answer your questions. Other YouTubers have explained this much better than I will, so I'll pop a few links in the description. Go and have a look at them if you want to learn a bit more. So, how do we go about studying the divine? Well, it depends on the framework of the faith that you're in, but for Christians at least, there are a few ways we can go about it. First off, there's the obvious one. Read the Bible. This collection of writings is our record of God's previous interactions with humankind, and it's where we get both questions and answers. It sounds silly and obvious, but given that we've been using it as a guidebook for 2,000 years, why would we look anywhere else? But, that said, the Bible is a product of a very specific time, and here's where a phrase you'll hear me say a lot comes into play. Context is key. After all, it was written a long time ago in a different culture to our own. Odd as it might sound, we can turn to secular discipline to aid us in understanding Scripture, and by extension, the divine. Archaeology can tell us all sorts of things to give us a greater understanding. For example, we might be told that certain people were evil in a passing comment in Scripture, but archaeology can tell us all about them and why they would have been regarded as evil. It can also, controversially, tell us where things don't quite add up in certain accounts of events. Literary criticism is also a helpful tool for the biblical scholar. Getting into the nitty-gritty of the language can help you figure out what sort of writing you're looking at. Are you looking at a poem, a story, a historical record? After all, these are all different and the Bible contains all of them. Studying the language can tell us all about the author and, tying back into archaeology, can tell us if indeed this was written, when it was written, and if it was written by the person who we thought it was written by. Finally, there's the more philosophical part of theology. Theology is all about asking questions, of course, but we tend to start off with the opinion that the supernatural and the divine actually exist, in some form or other. Some of the questions we have to ask have their answers in the Bible, but there are many more that don't, or are only partially answered. So we must ask and try and reason out the answers ourselves. A classic example of this would be the question, can God create an object he can't move? So when all's said and done, what is the point of theology? Well, here's a few answers. First off, we can use this to enrich our faith. Deepening our understanding of the culture a certain book was written in, the way words were used, or indeed the translation of the words themselves, can help us see what the author intended to put across, or why they talked about certain issues. We can see why our church does things the way it does, and what makes it different from the church across the street. All of us have got doubts and questions when it comes to faith, and with thousands of years behind us, some of these doubts may have already been answered by a theologian 500 years ago, or it might have been right in front of us the whole time. Secondly, we can use it to answer the questions of others, be they of our faith, another, or none. This is better known as apologetics, and criticism and questions about our faith are not a bad thing. Questions can enrich faith, or explain why you believe what you do, or maybe even enlighten another. Sometimes, yes, you will just get a troll asking really awkward questions, but theology can give you the actual answer to some of these questions and at least give you confidence in your beliefs. After all, even after 2,000 years, you haven't answered everything, and neither has anyone else for that matter. Finally, theology can teach you about yourself. When I did my degree way back when, I went to learn about the faith I was part of, but ended up learning about myself, which is one of the reasons I've been keen to share what I've discovered all these years ago on this channel. It took me out of my comfort zone and showed me new ideas. My faith is now a very different beast. I'm not alone in this either. Many great figures in Christianity's past impacted it because their study in the divine changed them. Well, there you have it. Theology is the study of the divine. But it's more than I can cram into just a short video. So the next part of the theology side of this channel will be an introduction into church history, as I feel that an overview of how Christianity's changed over the years is a great place to start explaining the theology we see around today. As always, there's going to be some relevant links down in the description for some extra reading. Like, share, subscribe and all that other good stuff. But until then, grab a drink and keep asking questions.